Hey everyone, Sliss here, and I'm going to be doing a patch rundown for the patch that's coming out January 15th. So let's just get right into it. First change is Unleash the Hound's mana cost is now 2, down from 4. So initially what they wanted to do with this is they wanted to give Hunter its own form of area of effect damage. It's basically Arcane Explosion, except you can focus the damage a little bit more, so you could do 3 damage to one thing, 1 damage to another thing, and then leave the other 2 creatures alone. It gave you more options instead of just 1 damage to everything. But the problem with it is that it costs too much earlier, so if you tried to combo it into like a Starving Buzzard to draw 4 cards, after your turn, all you would have is just a Starving Buzzard on the field, and then it'd be their turn 5, and you didn't clear too much because it's only 1 damage from each of the hounds. So the card wasn't too good, but now that it costs 2, it combos insanely well with like Starving Buzzard and Scavenging Hyena, because that allows you to make one huge hyena, or you get a ton of cards, but you still are able to play things because the mana is so low. It also combos really well with like Timberwolves for like a 1-turn kill type deal, or a Leok. So you have a lot of options with Unleash the Hounds now. It's almost like the Druid's Savage Roar combo with Force of Nature, where it's just out of nowhere and they just bash you for damage. It's kind of like that, except the enemy would have to have some sort of board on there. There'd have to be a lot of creatures. So there's some toss-up with that. It has the potential to be really, really good. Like, this could put Hunter to like a top tier class. It's ridiculous how just one little change might be doing something huge. I say might because no one's sure yet because the patch isn't actually live. So we'll have to see. Next, Pyroblast mana cost is now 10, up from 8. So I think the change with Pyroblast is they felt that mages were able to rush people down too well. Like, you wouldn't need board control, you wouldn't need anything. You just need them to be at 10 health at turn 8, and boom, they're dead, right? A lot of classes get low just clearing the board, such as like Rogue, and Druid does a little bit, but he gets the armor every time he uses his passive, so it's okay. Warrior, same thing, he gets armor every time he uses his passive, so he didn't get too low. But a lot of people get really low when they clear the board because they tank it with their face or they have some sort of weapon. I mean, a lot of the classes have a weapon. And if you're playing some sort of aggro deck, they could easily just counter aggro you and then ice block and then pyroblast. And there's really nothing you could do because pyroblast gives them a turn to get to 8 mana. So the whole nerf with Pyroblast is that they wanted to bring it back like a whole 2 turns before you can explode them in one shot. It also restricts their maximum damage on Pyroblast to be 10. Like, normally you could Pyroblast into a Frostbolt or Pyroblast into a hero ability to do 11, or if you use the Frostbolt it's 13. But now they changed that so it's just 10. So if you can buff yourself to 11 health on turn 10, you're pretty much safe unless they have another combo of cards that'll do the same amount of damage. So I think that's where they were going with this. I'm not sure if it'll completely kill Mage. I think it's definitely a big nerf. I don't know if it's going to actually like destroy the class, because the ability that mages have to stall out the game with Ice Block and early game aggro is really good. So we'll have to see when that actually goes live, but I think that's a big nerf. This is the nerf that everyone actually wanted, is Blood Imp is now a 0/2 that now reads Stealth. At the end of your turn, give a random friendly minion +1 health, right? So with this change, they didn't want it to be, the whole thing with Blood Imp is like the whole saying like, what is Blood Imp's counter? AoE. What does Blood Imp prevent? AoE. So it's basically a really strong card with the fact that it could stop what you were trying to prevent it to do, and it was ridiculous. So with this, it's basically turned it into a Young Priestess, where it just gives +1 health to something at the end of your turn. But it's a lot harder to kill than Young Priestess because it's stealthed, obviously. It still dies to AoE, it doesn't do any damage because it's an 0/1. So it's not going to be that hard to get rid of, but what they're trying to do, I feel, is that they don't want you to AoE the whole board and do nothing with your AoE like you used to do. Like, Swipe would kill one thing and it killed the Blood Imp, and everything else was just left untouched because the Blood Imp buffed it. But what they want to do is your AoE still does something, but now your single target spells and your single target damage, you're going to have to play a little more wisely with it because you have to account for something getting buffed at the end of their turn. So It's just sort of giving you a different perspective on how to clear the board. Blunt Imp, I don't think is going to be a huge problem, but now the aggro warlock decks are gonna have to think like, do I want 4 young priestesses in my deck when one of them can't even attack, right? So they're already down 4 damage if they decide like I want 4 young priestesses, and it also allows them to be taken down with AoE much easier. So I think this is a good nerf. I don't think they over-nerfed Warlock with this. They nerfed the card a lot, but I don't think it will kill the class. I think the class is still really viable. There's also the Molten Giants, and there's just the Giants version, because it also runs the Mountain Giants too. So there's that version, which is running really well. So I don't think that killed Warlock at all. It just kind of hinkered them a little bit. Warsong Commander has been reworked and now reads, whenever you play a minion with 3 attack or less, give it charge. Charge the spell, not the keyword, has been reworked and now gives 3 mana. The card's new power reads, give a friendly minion +2 attack and charge. So these changes, I grouped them together because they generally did this to kill the one-turn kill warrior deck, where you would drop Molten Giants, use a Brewmaster to bring it back, drop a Molten Giant, and they would all have charge, and you just ram their face in. And they nerfed the charge card itself because you used to have the Gore Howl into Alexstrasza combo, give the Alexstrasza charge, and that's 15 damage exact. So you were able to take out anyone that didn't have armor, right? So all the other classes except for Druid and Warrior were dead if they ended up getting that combo out. So they wanted to kill the one-turn Warrior deck because it's anti-fun. That's generally what a lot of games run now, is if they're nerfing something or they don't want something to be there, they claim that it's anti-fun. Because when you're playing a game, you want to have fun playing the game, right? You want to enjoy, you want to be able to play your cards, you want them to play their cards, you want to kill their stuff, you want your plan to work out, and they want their plan to work out. But if you can't play your cool cards or do anything because they just kill them, and then they armor, and they don't take damage, and then they one-shot you, and you can't do anything about it other than play taunts, but they have cards to kill your taunts, so they generally nerf these cards to the ground, I think. Warsong Commander, I don't think it's going to be usable anymore, unless people make a aggro warrior deck with just a ton of small drops. That might actually be a way to go with it, because 3 attack or less thing, imagine all the 2 drops that have 3 attack, that if they had charge would be really good. So that might be a viable option. Charge the spell, it now costs 3 mana, so you're not going to be able to do the Alexstrasza combo anymore. I don't know if the card will be used. It's still a decent card, because it gives +2 attack and charge, right? So it buffs the attack for 3 mana. It's almost like a Dark Iron Dwarf passive, or a Battle Cry. So it could be used. I don't see it used very often. I think it'll be special cases, mostly. Abusive Sergeant now reads Battle Cry, give a minion +2 attack until the end of the turn. Same thing with Dark Iron Dwarf. They changed these to be the same thing. So Abusive Sergeant is basically a cheaper Dark Iron Dwarf now, because the buff only gives them +2 attack. And the reason for this is they wanted you to be able to buff their minion and kill it, or if you didn't have a minion, you buffed their minion and then that was it. Like, you weren't screwed having their minion be buffed, because at the end of the turn it goes away. Pretty simple change. I don't think it's going to be doing much. I still think the cards are very valuable, because most of the time people use Dark Iron Dwarf as just to trade off things really quickly, so nothing new there. Defender of Argus is now a 2/3 from a 3/3. Again, this change doesn't do much. I mean, his attack is down 1, but he still does the same thing. He still gives +1/+1 in taunt to 2 creatures. His value is still really good. I don't see people dropping Defender of Argus now. Novice Engineer is now a 1/1 down from a 1/2. So with that, they just wanted to reduce its health a little bit, because they felt that the card itself was too good. Like, people could run it in any deck, and if you can run a card in any deck, that's not really a balanced card. And last but not least is Sylvanas, where the mana cost is now 6 up from 5. So they felt that her base power was just a little too much. Like, they couldn't handle a 5/5 for 5, so they buffed it up 1 to 6. I don't think it's going to change much. It's still a really good card. Mana's a little bit higher, but you can still play a lot of cards comboed with 6 mana. So I think Sylvanas will still be ran. That's it for my patch rundown. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and leave me feedback if you want to see more, or if you want to let me know what's up. Thanks.